Hi everyone, this is a video for my SkunkBox and also for the Assembly. And before I actually show the SkunkBoxes, what you will need to assemble them is a can of compressed air or duster, a small flathead screwdriver, a crosshead screwdriver. For revision 1 and 2 boards you will need a 1.2mm drill bit, and also for revision 1 board you will also need a 1.6mm drill bit. Let me move these out of the way. Now the boards will be available in different colours, polished or unpolished, and maybe different materials. I have only tested the white, strong and flexible plastic, so if you decide to test any other materials then it is entirely at your own risk. Once again, these are all tested with strong and flexible plastic. Here we have a black SkunkBox with a coarse design, so you can see there, very sturdy. Here we have a blue SkunkBox in a polished design, so if you compare the back, you see this one is coarse, this one is smooth. The disadvantage over smooth is you lose about 0.5 millimeter of the thickness of the plastic. So here, if you press on it a little bit, you can see a little bit of flexing. There's a minuscule amount of flexing. They're both strong, very strong, and that's without them being screwed together. And there is also different colours such as red available. Now this one highlights the issue with using colours. This one was dyed, but when it was 3D printed it wasn't cleaned properly, so when I open it up inside you can see that the normal base colour in all of these is white, and since these are 3D printed they use a powder substrate to hold these in place, which is then cleaned off when they're finished. However, this wasn't fully cleaned off and then it was dyed on top of that, so when I got it, it would not fit together. So using a small screwdriver I slowly scraped the excess away to make it fit. It is a pain in the butt because this plastic, even though it's 3D printed, is very, very strong, and to scrape this away just on this and that took numerous hours. It isn't quick. So if you decide to use a dyed colour, bear in mind that you may have some issues. However, the 3D printing company, I will be using shapeways.com, is very easy to work with and they replace this for me. It is possible that you may have some other issues like this one also. You can see where the actual print moved when it's being printed. It has some striations. It's still a pure red, and you can see there's a very straight, a faint line where it moved, which possibly caused some of the issues on the inside. But it does work. I did make it work, but it does not go together as easy as the other ones, because this one, when it's screwed together it's fine, it holds together, but as soon as you let go then it comes apart, in comparison to this one, which was a black one, which was printed almost perfectly. And once again, that just goes in and screwed together and it's done. And like I said, the coarse ones I actually like better myself because they seem just a little bit sturdier, and I like the grain effect on them, and I actually like the black. I'll be showing some white ones in a moment. Okay, the assembly on each board is a little bit different. Now when you get your SkunkBox, it will come in a box, and then usually inside it's usually in a packet like this one. Now what I would recommend you do when you first get one is, it may have some dust from the printing on the inside. So what I would highly recommend you do is get a small flathead screwdriver and then just go through any parts where you know it's going to clip together and more or less get any dust out which may be in there. Some of them have it, some of them don't. Here you can see at the end there is some. But it does make it easy to go together. And the same on these. It doesn't really matter on these edges, it won't affect it. But it is nice to get rid of the dust. And just get some compressed spray. And there may be some dust on the outside. Now one thing to note also is the dyed ones do not hold dust, static or fingerprints as much as the white ones. So if you get one of these clear coarse white ones, you may want to spray them, give them a lacquer or seal them somehow. Once again, that is entirely up to you and I take no responsibility for that. Now what you're going to need also is the 1.2mm drill. These are the plugs for the JTAG header, which are for the revision 1 and the revision 2 boards. So here's a 1.2mm drill bit. This will not fit in my drill, so I've got some frog tape wrapped around it. And very carefully, without going through your fingers, just drill into them to get the excess off. I already went through most of this one earlier on, so most of it is gone. And if you're counting correctly, yes, there was 7 holes, and that is for a reason, because I cannot guarantee when these are printed how they turn out, because some of these can expand or shrink when being printed. So the 7 holes gives a little bit more flexibility. So here's a revision 1 board, and what I recommend you do before you do that, you just test it to see if it goes most of the way down, which it does. Now for the revision 1 board, you're also going to need a 1.6mm drill bit, and that is because this is the only board where it actually screws in on the inside. So very carefully, what you want to go to do is take these holes, because once again they fill up with dust. Let's get your drill bit. And you're going to want to go down about 1/4 of an inch. Making sure you do not go through the front. Or through your fingers. That would be bad as well. Once again, get the compressed there, put the board down, and here take your board, and press it down gently. As you can see, there's 2 small, tiny little notches which start the board from moving side to side and should line it up perfectly. So I press it up to the top and in between, and it should be in place. Now what you're going to need also for the revision 1 board is 2 1/4 inch round head screws. The brass ones are for a flat head screw. I highly recommend you don't use them. And here is a 1/4 inch round head but with a cross head bit. So here you're going to want to take a screwdriver and you're going to want it to have a really tight fit. Carefully hold the screw put it into the board. And screw it down. Now this one, because these are a finer thread screw, we're going to want to put a little bit more pressure pushing down on them because we don't have as much bite on the back screws. So once again, this is why I highly recommend you use a crosshead bit so it doesn't slip out. So once again, when you have it, try and hold the board, try and hold the bit. And screw down, so you should be able to just start feeling it get tight. You don't want to loosen the screw though, because like I said, there's not a whole lot to bite on. So as soon as you feel that touch the board, you want to stop. Now you're going to want to take the back, and once again you're going to take the back, you're going to place it up at a bit of an angle. There's two tiny little notches here also, which I did not mention before, so you may want to take your small screwdriver or a small drill bit, and if you can, just fill. I'll take some of the excess out of those, which I should have done at the beginning. Once again, I'll just give it a little bit of spray. Take your back cover, and at a very slight angle you're putting it in. So you want to get both the ends in, which are flat at the same time, and that middle, which is down under that ledge. Press it forward, and as you can see, it's clipped together. So then we can take the back screws. Now here we need a number 4, and I believe it was 1/2 inch screw on this one, to hold these together. At my local store they have a variety of them, from chrome to nickel to black to brass to bronze, and if I remember correctly they have these little cool ones which I never used before, which are a coarse screw but they have a very slight round head. So since I've not used these, let's give them a try. So just start out with your finger and then screw it in. If you feel it getting tight, then just back it off a little bit and carry on. Now until you get the other screw bit in, don't go all the way down. Once again, start with your finger, go in. It's getting tight, so back off a little bit. Tight, back off a little bit. Because these obviously aren't threaded, so we're actually threading these with the screw as we go down. And once again, you want these to go in so they're tight, but you don't want to over tighten them. Now we have a pretty cool looking Skunkboard for the revision 1. Now notice on this one, this is perfectly centre. Some of the boards will possibly expand slightly or shrink slightly. I've done some boards where putting the boards in have turned out tight, which I'll show in a minute, and also where they've turned out not so tight. They still work perfectly fine, but that's up to you. Now as you can see on those parts which clip together there, I should have cleaned those out a little bit more. So since I'm just doing this now for the video, those little grooves which help hold it back in place, you may want to clean those out a little bit better than I did, but it's just to show you it does work. As for the plug, you can take the plug, and the plug will just keep the JTAG header protected. So that is the revision 1 board. It's a Jaguar there. As you can see, it goes in perfectly fine. To remove it, you just hold your Jaguar down, hold the ends, and take it out. So now for the revision 2 cap. This is different mounting than the revision 1. Because this one mounts from the back. As you can see, this one has been mostly cleaned because it's already clipped together. But once again, just going to clean out. The main parts where these clip together are here and there. That one never usually gets any mess on it, any excess, so that one's not too bad, usually. Here though, on the inside is another matter, and those you want to make sure those are perfectly clean because you want them to work properly first time. Now you can see that, but it's a lot of dust on that one, which flew around. So once again, we're going to go back to the 1.2mm drill bit. Like I said, this is only required on, actually, for cleaning those notches out the back. It could be used on all of them. You could use a small screwdriver, it's up to you. So very, very carefully, obviously I didn't go in there very flat, but it'll work. For this, I actually prefer using the tiny little screwdriver, it usually works better. Downside using frog tape to hold the drill bits in there. But anyway, if you don't have that, then just use a small screwdriver like this one. And do that just to clean out. Once again, take your dust and take your revision 2 board. Once again, this one has a JTAG header, so it's going to have the piece at the back. I believe I cleaned this one out already. Actually not that one, I believe it maybe that one. So like I said, the 7 positions, I've made it in case there is expansion or contraction on the printing, so you have a little bit of leeway to put that in. Now this is where I mentioned about the boards being slightly different, where they can expand or shrink slightly. As you can see here, there's a tiny little bit of movement on the board. Now it will not affect operation at all, because obviously this is key to go into the Jaguar slot, and there's enough leeway at the side to allow it to go around. I'll show you a solution for that. In comparison to this revision 3 case, this will still fit in. Actually no, it won't. actually I guess it does just, there's no movement on that at all. So once again, this is just depending how it is printed. Well, that is not made for a JTAG header. So you'll use this one. Now the downside of this being a little bit looser is normally to put them together, if it holds in place, it's easier to put them in upside down. For that, we can't do that because it's going to try and move. So what you're going to want to do is carefully push that in upside down. And as you can see, it's in perfectly fine. Now, why the box is loose a little bit, just move that to get that centered. And this is where, once again, we pick whichever screws we want. So, how about some brass ones for this? So like the other one, screw it in. If you feel it's starting to get too tight, back it off a little bit because we don't want the plastic to snap on the inside. And then go most of the way down, but not all the way down. Now this one here I didn't clean out, you can see there's a tiny little bit of dust in there. So just give that a gentle clean out. Your screwdriver, like all the rest, screw it in. That one's starting to get really tight, so I'll back it off really tight, back off a little bit. Now all these boards I'm doing right now are all brand new printed. I haven't messed around with them or done anything with them at all. So, you know, before we finally tighten it, we have that in centered. Now these ones are flathead, so these ones will countersink a tiny little bit. We have the header, I believe it was this one. Once again, pops in, and the JTAG header is protected. One thing to note is you can see just from my fingers touching this and touching the black one, there is some transfer of colour a little bit, so once again, if you want to seal that, then that is up to you. Now, the revision 1 board, which I didn't clean out properly on these parts, which I'll do later, as you can see on this one, it fits down perfectly flat. So once again, in the Jaguar, goes perfectly down. There's clearance for the JTAG header, so if that is ever needed while it's plugged into the Jaguar, you can take it out and still access it. Take it out, and that is revision 2 done. Now the revision 3 board, I'll show you really quick. This was the first prototype I actually made. So this is a ghost board. The revision 3 will work perfectly fine. As you can see, that clips in there, holds in place. So once again, it depends on the printing. Clips together. 2 screws, maybe black ones on this one, and you have a cool black SkunkBox. However, like all of them, I shall show you the new one. So once again, this one is already clipped together, so we know it does fit perfectly fine. But for the sake of a few seconds, you can see still some dust in there. So once again, anywhere that this meets together, you're going to want to clean off, because you want these lips to go perfectly down. Now I'm doing these really quick because obviously it's a video and I don't want it to become too boring. If you get one of these, you may want to take a little bit more time. Now, as you can see on that one, there's a little bit of dust inside that hole, so while this is a part there, and it's fine going through on this one because that goes obviously all the way through, so you can do that with that. Okay, so we've got the back piece, which we will put with SkunkBox in. Once again on this one, there's a little bit of movement, and it just seems to just differ how it's printed. I don't know if these certain temperatures they use or what makes a difference, but there is slight difference on it. The way it is printed, maybe the way it's cooled. Now you have the front. Once again, we have these tiny little bits at the top, so using our tiny little flathead screwdriver on the little dent, and I'm guessing this is probably about 2mm. Just give them a clean out. I put these in to try and hold the back level. So once again, because this one technically could fall out, I'm going to put it together like that. If you want the ends to go in flat and that to go in, and there we have it. This end, once again, because this one moved, it's a little bit off center. So if you can just even it up a little bit. And let's pick our screws on this one. That one there. So again, this is a little bit tight. Back off. Back off. Back off. Back off. And then snelly in. Back off, back off, back off, back off. And so again, we're just making sure we don't pull any of the case apart by putting too much torque on the parts. And centered nicely. Once again, you want these to be tight, but you don't want them to be ridiculously tight. As soon as you feel quite a bit of pressure, I'm going to stop. So there we have revision 3, our ghost cased Jaguar. As you can see, it works perfectly nice with the white case. And take it out, just hold the ends, take out. Now for the final board, we have the Silly Venture, and here I have two options available. We have this one, and also this one, which for the most part they're virtually identical. However, if you look at the end, this one has vents which I made. I'm unsure how much heat the Skunkboard generates, and since the Silly Venture board does not have any of the large USB ports, there's not much room for it to vent heat if need be. I don't know if it is necessary, but once again, this is an option which just has the two small vents at each end. So other than that, they're identical, but it does give an option. So since that one's coming apart in my hand, let's put that one together. And once again, these are all brand new cases. So as you can see, there's 4 cases which I'm assembling, and there'll be 4 which works perfectly first time. As I mentioned before, on the red one, doesn't always happen that way, but I've had quite a few of these made to test to make sure they do work, and they all do. On this one is no of the holes which clamp in a line at the back, so you don't need to worry about them. As you can see on this one, let me move that one out of the way because I don't want dust. On this one there's actually quite a bit of dust, which shows how these are printed. So when they're in the print, they put them in one way and they print layer by layer, which is a minuscule amount they print each time, and every time they print a layer, they cover that layer with this very, very fine dust. Now sometimes they're perfectly clean, this one obviously isn't. And this is a good example of the downside to make sure of when you get one which is possibly dyed. Once again, all the cases start off white, and to get them coloured they're cleaned off, and then they're dyed and they're baked. So if you have something like this and it would have been dyed, when you, on this one it would have had a big chunk of dye over the top of the material, which then becomes hard, and when you want to clean the board or assemble them, depending where the excess is, it can make it difficult. Once again, let's go back to the red one. It doesn't look a whole lot, but like I said, to get these colours, they're baked, and it's a pain to get them off and then to get them to reline up. This one I chopped around a little bit because I designed it slightly incorrectly on that part there. This part here, I just cut them off because there was so much excess on them. I could not easily clean it off or file them down, and you know, it was just easy to cut it off. It still fits together and works. But like I said, you can see there on these how much excess there was. On the black one, blue one, I've shown you there was no excess at all. They were perfectly fine. So most of the time they're fine, and if you do have a problem and mention that to Shapeways, then they should remedy that for no charge for you. So since there's so much dust on this, I'm going to clean it off behind the camera. Okay, so now we've got both sides. We have the Silly Venture board, and once again, on the printing on this one compared to some of the other ones, there's a tiny little bit of movement. Once again, just so you're reassured, the Jaguar cartridge slot is keyed, so it will still work perfectly fine. Now since this one won't hold upside down when I assemble it, which makes it easier on the camera, I'm going to try and put this together like this. As you can see, that one does go together, but right there, there's a bit of a gap, so obviously there's something which is preventing that from going as it should. So this is where, depending how well they're cleaned by Shapeways staff, it can be depend how long it takes you to get them assembled. So before we pull this one back together this time, we'll do a dry fit again. Now, one other reason I decided to choose Shapeways to print these out is Shapeways is an international company. They have a printing facility, I believe it's in New York, and they also have one in Europe. So depending where you live will make it easier and quicker for you actually to get one printed. So you just go to their website, and if you live in Europe, then it should direct you to a printing facility in Europe, so you don't have to wait as long for it to get printed and delivered. Depending on how busy they are, I've had some boards which take only a few days to get printed, and other ones which have took longer. Okay, this is a continuation of the same video. The memory card was just full. So as for putting the screws in, I think on this one we shall choose these nice little black ones to give nice contrast. Once again, like any of the other boards. Back off the screws when turning them in if they start to get too tight, just to make sure you don't break any of the mountings. Yeah, perfect. Align for center. And this is the adventure board in white. So once again, in a Jaguar, fits in there perfectly fine. Hole in like in the Diva board to take it out. Very strong and sturdy case. And what I'll do now is just to show you how easy they come apart. Get the screws out. Once again, one of the most important things on these is actually to have a good fitting screwdriver. If it should fit very snugly together. If you can feel like moving around, then you're waiting for a disaster to happen. So as we know, this one is a little bit loose compared to the other board, our case, which I shall show you now. Carefully. Like that. We'll go back to the blue case. Just carefully peel them apart. And here, this is a dyed one. And as you can see, there was no excess or anything. Actually, I guess there was a tiny bit in that one. So there you go, there's a bit of an example of where you can see the blue and the powder where, depending how well it was cleaned, and there might be some excess, so the dye was dyed over the top of the powder. So what I'm going to do, since I just noticed that, yeah, I'm going to let it spray out. No, I've never had a problem with the dyeing on the outside, it's usually been on the inside, but as you can see right there, it was some dye, so it won't affect operation at all. Put the board in. Well, as you can see, compared to the other board, there's no movement on this board at all. So whether that's the thickness of the dye, the temperature, the printing, they use numerous steps. But like the last whiteboard, clips in. So I know that this also is a polish, so this is a polished, strong and flexible plastic which is dyed blue. And then we can put the black screws back in. This one's been taken apart a couple of times, so as you can see, compared to the new one, it goes together a little bit easier. And once again, compared to the other board, this one doesn't have the board inside it though, so there's nothing inside. That one at the moment it's not screwed, but it just feels a little bit more flex on the ones which are polished because it does take away. Once again, both of these are vented, and just like the other one, goes in the Jaguar perfectly fine. To move it, just grip both ends, finger and thumb, pull out, and it's there. Now one thing you can also do with these is actually swap the colours. There is a couple of different backs which actually will swap with each other. They might leave a gap depending whether it's a JTAG one or not. Let's take the black one and let's take the white one, both are revision 3 cases. This was the first prototype, so this one doesn't have the alignment pins in it, which this one does. So you may be able to see there, it's a little bit out of alignment. It still works perfectly fine, but it's just a fraction. So just unclip it. And then unscrew. If someone wants to make these screw packs available on eBay or so, somewhere else, then go for it. I can't include them once again since Shapewaves only prints the actual plastic parts. So what I'm going to do now is I think I will take the black back and the revision 3 ghost board, hook it in, and just like the blue one, this one clips in a little bit tighter. You can see I didn't show this before, but there's perfect clearance all around for everything. Then we shall take the white front and notice, you can't see very well on this one, but you have the alignment pins on there. There isn't on this one. That's one thing I did change. So we'll take the white front, so these ones aren't going to align in that one, but it'll still work. And then carefully put it in at an angle again. When they're both in, what I usually do, 2 fingers like that, and then just push forward and down. And you can see we have a black case and a white front. So let's change those screws. Let's use these black ones, which you can probably tell with the dust I've used before. And just like all the other times, I'm not going to screw it all the way in. Do the other one. Now, also notice on this one, compared to the other one, this one is a very fraction out of alignment. Once again, that is just a 3D printer, and they can expand, they can contract, and I have no control over them at all. And because the alignment pins aren't on there, that does raise up a little bit, but it's minuscule. As you can see, it fits together perfectly fine. And now you have an awesome tuxedo SkunkBox, and just like all the rest of them, press it into your Jaguar and it looks cool, and it works perfectly fine. So once again, these are going to be made available on shapeways.com. If you have any questions, then post a comment, or if you're interested in getting some of these prototypes which I won't be using, then send me a private message. That is the revision 3, Ghost box. This is the Silly Venture. This is a revision 2 with JTAG header. And this is the revision 1. Actually, also used a very slightly different screws on these, as you can see. So they give a different effect. It's up to you. And there you have it. Like I said, any questions, let me know. And my next video, as you may have noticed, will include the back and internal parts to modify the white Jaguar case to make it very, very similar to an original Jaguar case. Thank you. Bye bye.